We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you,
welcome along to NUFC Matters. We are live for an episode of Ask George. Yes, George. Welcome, mate. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine, thanks. Yeah, raring to go.
So, just let people know, mate. What boundaries can people cross? What boundaries can't people cross?
Look, they can ask me anything they like. The only area I will not get involved in are questions about Neil, about my son. He's entitled to his privacy, and it would be stupid of to say anything other than I'm greatly proud of him. So no Neil questions, please, unless that to do about football and his football and wherever. But other than that, personal stuff about Neil, no way. Personal stuff about me, I'll answer anything you like. But I mean, yeah, people should know that. I mean, I had 30 years as a magistrate, 20 years as a deputy lieutenant. I'm still a deputy lieutenant. 40 years as a school governor. 60 years in the Scout Association. So there are lots of things people can ask. Not just about football, but yeah, and of course, me short time at Newcastle United is important to us in a personal sense.
Okay, couple of questions coming in, so we can start with this. And Blue Rhythm Boy was first in. He said, "Start, bench, and sell." And the 3 players he wants to talk about are Shearer, Beardsley, and Supermax. So, who would you start? Who would you put on the bench, and who would you sell of those 3 players? If you had to do one for each of those players, what would you do?
Oh, it's Pedro's got to be the starter, hasn't he? Because he's got the ability to do it all. He's got the ability to go box to box. He's got the ability to score goals. He's got the ability to read the game. So always in that sense, for a team point of view, Peter Beardsley's got to be the starter. And start, what was the other one?
So your 3 players, Shearer, Beardsley, and Supermax. So you said you're going to start Beardsley. So who would you put on the bench, Shearer or Supermax?
It'd be Supermax, largely because the time's moved on since Malcolm was in the fray, although he was a very fit and very fast person. But Shearer's all-round game, again, makes him the more likely option for me. He was never say die, is what I liked about Shearer. Lots of centre forwards would see balls go to the corner flag and just let them roll out. Never Shearer. dangerous thing to do was to let Shearer run after a ball that everybody thought was going to go out, because he could guarantee 2 minutes later it was sitting in the back of your net. So Shearer, marginally, I've got to say, Super Mac was a favourite as well. I mean, who can forget? I mean, I was in the ground when he made his debut and scored that fantastic hat trick against Liverpool. So it's very marginal on the two strikers. The first one was easy for me. Peter Beardsley's an all-round player, but the other two are very marginal. But Shearer, just on the basis of his slightly better all-round game, I think.
Okay, good stuff. Questions starting to flow in. Please get your questions in, George. We're on till 6 o'clock, starting slightly earlier tonight, obviously because of the England game. Craig Lee, he's got two part of his question. We'll ask the first one first. He says, George, how would you feel if we move from St James's Park to a site just up from the current location?
I would be disappointed if we moved from the current location, but if there's a possibility of an increased capacity ground slightly higher up Barrack Road and into the Leazes Park, then I don't think I'd be too upset about that. It might happen. When we tried to develop before, the big problem before was all the people were against us. The council were against us. The university were against us. Leazes Park people were against us. It's slightly different now. All those people that I've mentioned, they've got no bloody money. We've got lots of money. And one thing we could do is buy our way into a new situation like that. So if it happened, I wouldn't be totally against it. But the cathedral on the hill, as it's become known all over the world, not just locally, is so special to me after going there for the last 77 years, since I was a 4-year-old. Yes, I'd be disappointed to lose it, but I could understand if they really did have an opportunity to increase the capacity substantially. If we went slightly up Barrack Road into the park a little bit, or something like that, but it's a possibility. But my will would be to stay where we are. I don't just say that parochially. I listen to other people that come to St James's. Anybody who wants to hear nice things about the city and about the ground should go to the Magic weekend, the Rugby League weekend, and listen to what Rugby League fans think about St James's Park. They love it. And the New Zealand chief of their rugby union, their rugby league group, he said he stood in the middle of St James's Park and said, "This is the best stadium I've been in the world." Now that's what a thing to say by somebody from not even in the country. So if it happens, I wouldn't be too upset, but I'd prefer to stay where we are.
Craig's other part of his question was, what's your favourite biscuit, George?
Oh, yeah, I'm a biscuit fan. At the moment, it's Twix, I'm afraid.
We're good. Vince, good evening. Long time since we've seen you, mate. I hope you're well. He says, hello, ask George, does he know how much of a legend he is?
Oh, goodness, Vince. I know you well enough to say thank you for that. And I've missed you as well. Usually have a good natter before the match at the food bank with you. And appreciate all the things you do for the food bank. Yeah, you dressy up runs and that sort of thing. Vince, I don't do this to be a legend or anything else other than just enjoy being a Newcastle United fan. Steve will tell you, all the things I do are about being a Newcastle fan. It isn't about George or promoting George or anything. I want to promote Newcastle United till we're the best in the country, till we're the best in Europe and playing for the World Club Championship. That's what George wants to see. If that, by the way, has given me some credit, then I'm happy with that. But no, I don't regard myself as a legend or anything like that. But thanks for the question, Vince. Very kind.
Benny says, who doesn't like a Twix? They're amazing. So there's a Twix fan in the chat there. Les, good evening. You were great in the advert recently, George. Are there any more to come, do you think?
Yes, I believe there's a video goes with that. The advert was a runner for something bigger, was my belief, and that still remains in Saudi Arabia. I mean, the guys that filmed that came to my house from Saudi Arabia, and it was a wonderful experience. And again, listening to what those people had to say about us and about the city and the people was really refreshing. So my belief is, yes, there is more to come. I don't know when they're going to release it or what they're going to use it for. But they were here all day, so they could make a film out of me, never mind anything else. But it was a great experience. And short answer to your question is, yes, I do believe there's more to come. But I'm sure they'll use it when they're ready. But it was a good experience.
Vince says, cheers, George. Getting on with things. I know you were a legend to me, which is very nice. Star bars are the best, says Les. Did they get a biscuit, says Craig? Yes, I think they did. Tom Dixon, keeping it to tonight's events, I guess. He says, ask George, what would your team be for tonight, and how far do you think England will go in the competition, George?
Unless our manager decides to have a more attacking formation than he's had so far, we'll not get much further than where we are. I beggar's belief that we have two of the fastest wingers in the country, perhaps in Europe, and they've been warming their bums on the bench for 180 minutes, not even on the pitch. I just find that beggar's belief. And if he doesn't use them, then we deserve all we get. The other thing is that I want to see the John Stones that plays for Manchester City playing for England, not the John Stones we've seen so far that gets to the halfway line and then retreats back to his own penalty area. The John Stones that plays for Manchester City is like an extra midfielder and is likely to score as much as they are. Where does that go? Why does that change so dramatically when they're with England? I just find that beggars belief. The team doesn't need to be that much different. I think Trippier will go because I think he's got a calf injury anyway. But he's not a left back. He's a good fill-in at left back, but he ain't an international left back. He'll play there? God only knows. Fancy taking a player who's already injured is another question I'd ask. So I don't anticipate lots of changes, but I would like to see changes in the front row with the two wingers, Anthony Gordon particularly. Those lads come on against Denmark, they would have run the legs off those three big centre halves and taken the game forward. But no, we seem to have got into get a goal and then defend. We're defending 1-0 from after 20 or 30 minutes. It's just ridiculous. So I don't expect to see many changes. And I wouldn't want that many changes, to be honest, because some of the best players we've got are on the field. And I think Southgate's got to have the courage to ask some questions about his captain. Who's ever seen a 45 minutes in an international game where the centre forwards touched the ball once? And we saw that in the first game, which how are we going to win if and he spends more time in our penalty area than he does the opposition's? So I wouldn't see lots of changes, but I'd like to see Bellingham released a little bit. And I don't subscribe to the idea that Bellingham and Foden can't play together. I think they can. It's not the same as Lampard and the Liverpool player because they were identical style. The two young ones we've got now can adapt their style. Bellingham's box to box, lots of energy. Foden can play up the middle like he sometimes does for Manchester City. I haven't seen any of that. So I don't expect to see lots of changes, but I would like to see some of our speed merchants really released up front.
Vince says the rumours are that Gallagher will be going in for Trent. Negative. Put Gordon on with Palmer. Might get a couple of goals from it. Mick Mullane said he's asked Southgate about tactics and he said he'll have mint ones, please. And Benny says, I know we're biased here about Gordon, but he literally was exactly what England needed at half-time versus Denmark. Running off Kane, in behind, aggressive, set the tone, maybe by a cheap penalty, Southgate. Yeah, I mean, lots of people saying the same.
He would have also let Kane stay where he should stay, because he's got the energy to go back and forward. Gallagher isn't my favourite. When he went on the other night, the first thing I said to myself was, how long it'll be before he gets booked? And less than 10 minutes, he was in the referee's book. No, Chelsea have done that lad no favours, I tell you. Never mind.
No. Craig Lee says I'd start Wharton and Bellingham, Saka, Foden, Gordon with someone other than Kane up top. Even the media are saying that Kane looks lethargic, tired. They're also saying Bellingham looks the same. You know, Bellingham is, he's had a long season with Real Madrid, but hasn't every player had a long season who's playing in this tournament?
Absolutely. Look at some of the other countries that they've had. Some of them have had longer seasons than us because they have international cups as well as local cups and international tournaments that we don't get involved in. So this notion that it's just us is just a nonsense. I agree with you, Steve. They've all had a tough season. I did for a little while, when I looked at him on the pitch, wonder if a little bit of Bellingham's problem was frustration. That things weren't going our way, and he would have liked to change them, and he works hard to try and do that. So, no, I would like to see him and Foden released a little bit, and allowed to do the clever things they do for the clubs. The Bellingham we're seeing on for England is not the Bellingham I watched on TV for Real Madrid. No. He's not. He doesn't seem to have the same threat, and that's got to be how we play. Now I wonder if that's not frustration from him as much as anything.
Yeah, I would agree. Craig Lee says I think Rice and Gallagher are the same player, but one looks better doing it. When you compare them on the sober score, there's little in it other than defensively, which can be coached. Yeah, so I think you're right, Craig. I think there's you should have two of each, and two in each position when you're picking the England squad. It should be the easiest job in the world, but Southgate seems to now be going down that route of making it as difficult for himself as he possibly can.
Well, even Rice. The Rice that's been playing out of his skin for Arsenal towards the end of the season isn't the Rice that we're seeing on for England. He's another one who gets to the halfway line and stops. Where for Arsenal, he was charging forward. Once he got the ball at his feet and there was an opening, he was charging forward. And why? Why can't you do that for us? Other than the tactics from the manager or the coaching staff.
Yeah. Okay, next question was from Benny. He says, George, what are your thoughts on the creation of a second cartel in the Premier League, including Newcastle, Aston Villa, Chelsea, Everton, Forest and Leicester, to combat the PSR rules original cartel?
I'd much rather have a go at getting rid of all these stupid bloody rules. Cartels are cartels, and they're never successful, in my view. Eventually, somebody tries to break them. Somebody tries to break the shackles of a cartel, and the whole thing comes tumbling down. So I wouldn't be involved like us to be involved in any cartel. What I want to see is old-fashioned competition in football, and it isn't. If they're going to say it's just about money, then there are ways in which you can curb the money. Some of the examples they have in American football, for example, might work. But if we don't try them, I'd rather have that than have what we've got at the moment, where 6 clubs are dominating the other 14. Thankfully, some of the others are now beginning to realise that they're used as cannon fodder to support the cartel. But I wouldn't be in favour of another cartel. No, it's Now it's just another devil to get rid of eventually. It would have to go eventually because this one will go, and I still firmly believe that not before too long, the Premier League will have to face their demons over this one and sort it out because they're on the verge of a revolution now. Remember when they started all of this, they let us get our takeover and then immediately introduced what they called the Newcastle rules, which in itself are, from a competition point of view, are completely illegal. And that's the route I think that will open things up. That someone eventually will dip their toe in the water of competition rules, because until we do that, football is going to be in the mire. It isn't. What's happening now just isn't nice. It's is in danger of actually ruining football. The other thing I see sneaking in is, of course, with all these American owners, it'll not be long before they're belly aching about promotion and relegation. Like in American football, they won't have that in that. And I see them saying, well, let's do it. Just let the championship and the others look after themselves. We look after the Premiership. We don't want them coming and going. And that would be tragic. Like all these stupid notions about not having replays. The lifeblood of football is that the littlest teams that play on your local park, if they get into the cup, if they're lucky enough and win enough games, they can be playing at St James's Park against Newcastle United and making a lot of money. Look at the money Brad Spartans made when they had their big run. I understand that their wages were paid for about 10 years after that cup run. The bank was really pleased to see them, So anything that restricts that, I would be again, and any sort of other cartel would do just that, as far as I'm concerned.
Andrew says, well said, George. I've said it for ages. Why aren't the other clubs standing up to the clearly cartel clubs? The rules need levelling up, or the other 14 should boycott. And Craig says, Les, the Premier League's operating like an independent regulator. They have no idea what they're doing either. Okay, let's get back to the questions. Craig says, a question for George. Who's his pick for the next England manager and next Newcastle manager if Eddie were to leave?
Wow. I can hear people groaning now. Next England manager, I would like to see someone who has long-standing credibility at international level, and it wouldn't be an Allardyce or somebody like that. It would. I wouldn't mind going down an ex-player. I wouldn't actually mind going back to Kevin Keegan for England if he was interested. Somebody that will put a smile on my face, because like it or not, even when we're winning, supporting England, it's difficult to smile because he's such a miserable sort. But yeah, somebody in the Keegan mold, and would really please me to try and get back to the notion that it's a beautiful game and we all should be enjoying it. For Newcastle United, now that's a tougher one. If you'd asked me this question 5 years or plus ago, the answer would have been straight away Jose Mourinho. But I think Jose's had his turn now, and yes, he's won something everywhere he's gone, but he also leaves. When he leaves a mess. I mean, look at the mess. He won a title for Roma, but look at the mess he's left behind now that he's gone. So no, I don't want that at Newcastle. I would have done some time ago. And if I haven't listened to him on the box commentating, I really would like somebody to twist Alan Shearer's arm and think about whether we could have a Geordie manager for Newcastle United. I'm serious about that, really.
Shearer for England. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, it's a job he could probably do. He'd certainly be a tick in the box for the FA, I think. But yeah, it's an interesting shout, that. I wonder whether he would give up the studio for doing that job. I mean, Eddie Howe is going to be in the mix. You know, we've heard potentially that England have, you know, requested permission to speak to him. You know, for me, this is playing devil's advocate here, but would next season, should Howe not qualify for Europe and not win a trophy, he's going to be under pressure in the following season. You know, it could be that he has something to think about. It could be something that he has to think about, and the club has to think about. If the offer from England comes in this summer,
Steve, I'm personally of the view, if by next Christmas we don't look like we're going to be doing something, I think he'll be under pressure then. I don't think it'll take to the end of the season, because the powers that be in Saudi want success, and if they don't think they're going to get it, they'll change sooner rather than later. So yeah, he will be under pressure. I'm not sure. Eddie's, don't get me wrong, I admire all the stuff he's done. And you think of the money he's saved by the way he's trained up some of those players who were dead legs to get with Bruce. Couldn't even get in a bloody team with Bruce. And now they're stars, absolute stars, because of the methods he's used. But I don't see him as an England manager. I think Eddie Howe needs a day-to-day team to do those day-to-day things, which you can't do as an England manager. So I don't see. They may want to talk to him, but I'm not sure it's a job he would take, because I do think he's someone who likes to work with the team day to day. I can understand why they'd want to talk to him. That would be daft if they didn't. But I think he would. I doubt if he would take it. I think he needs a team, a day-to-day issue.
Yeah, and the big question mark is who would replace him at Newcastle. I mean, I'd love to see somebody like a Mancini or an Ancelotti come in if Howe did leave.
Yes.
Somebody who's got the experience of winning things. And I don't think we can attract a Pep or a Jurgen yet. Potentially Newcastle are a big club, but I don't think we've got the money, to bring in somebody along those lines. But I think an Ancelotti or a Mancini would see it as a challenge. I know Mourinho would, but I think a lot of us feel his stock has dropped massively over the last few years, as you said, George.
Yeah, he's 5 years ago I would have said he would be my number one. But whether it was the bitterness of what happened to Manchester United, I don't know. But he has won things, but he's left a trail of garbage behind him as well, which isn't very good for the club. Mancini, Ancelotti, they're all. I was thinking along the lines of a really good international manager rather than just an English manager, and take it from there. And I've no doubt, again, that the people in Saudi Arabia will already will have a file full of names, I'm sure, already.
Yeah, me too. Okay, halfway through the show, if you've got a question for George, please send it in. We'll try and get through as many as we can. But now we're going to play the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins. You can find their website at skipsandbins.com. Contact us, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to United Group Travel. They are the Travel and Tourism Award winners in 2024. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. A big thanks to Media Arts. You can find them at www.media-arts.co.uk. And don't forget, we are a podcast. You can find us on iTunes or Spotify or other podcast providers. If you want to help the channel grow, then hit the like button, the little thumb underneath the video, click share and share to your social media, or join the channel for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to take out a one-off payment membership, go to nufcmatters.com and hit membership. And for a £25 fee, you get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. You can also put a smartphone over the top of this QR code. It'll take you straight there. And don't forget, we also help the food bank on this channel. nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is a website where you can make a virtual donation today.
And don't forget, if you are looking for somewhere to watch the England match, Gateshead Leisure Centre is showing it, and Supermatt and Gibbo are there to do a pre-match talking. Get yourself along and support the lads. Supermatt and Gibbo are also on stage with War George and the Long Sands in aid of Dementia Matters, and that is 20th of July at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are a tenner. All proceeds going to the charity, and you can get them from newcastlelegends.com or nufcmatters.com. And Gibbo and Rob Lee's event, which was at the City Hall, is now at Gateshead Leisure Centre, and that will be taking place on the same date, Friday the 2nd of August. If you've got tickets for it, then please just transfer your tickets to there. You'll be able to use your tickets there. gatesheadleisurecentre.co.uk is the website address if you want to buy some tickets for that event. And Danny Mitchell is running this event as well, Friday the 12th of July. It's at the Crown Plaza in Newcastle, and it is an exclusive Rugby World Cup 21st anniversary celebration dinner with Martin Johnson, CBE. And there's a 3-course meal and coffee, drinks reception at 7 o'clock. So if you want to meet that rugby legend, and it's in aid of the Dean Fox MND Foundation, then email Danny at changefr.co.uk or telephone 0781 741 2524, and you can get your tickets off Danny for that event today. Okay, back to the questions. And George, this one's from Tom. He says, ask George, do you think VAR should be like what we are doing in the Euro competition? So do you think the new VAR rules and stuff that have been brought in the Euros, do you think that would be a welcome addition to the Premier League? I do think it's coming in the following season, George.
They are better, but I go back to where I always go with this. Why don't they sit and watch what rugby league do, what rugby union do, what cricket do? Why is it so hard to take examples from other sports? Again, I go to the Magic Weekend. The referee, you hear what the referee says. You hear what the person in the box says. And you see all the slow motions that the referee's saying. And you know, the fans are telling you what the answer is long before the referee does. But it's all open and no closed doors, no whispering through microphones. The fans hear everything. They did that. I could live with VAR. What I can't stand is somebody in Stockley Park, 300 miles away, making decisions 10 minutes after that happened. I mean, that example against Arsenal where we had it, where there was three challenges to that goal, and we had to sit through all three till they made a decision. Players standing around for 10 minutes getting their muscles cold, and the Arsenal players badgering the referee when they shouldn't have been anywhere near him. That's all, again, anything in football, surely. No, let's open and transparent. That's what I want. But I do agree that what's happening in Europe at the moment is better than what we've got, although they have made some glaring errors. There was the one the other night, which was diabolical, and Scotland should have had a penalty the other night as well. So they haven't got rid of the errors altogether, but it's better. I acknowledge it's better than what we've got at the moment. But let's get rid of this secret microphone and open it up so everybody can hear what's said, not just the referee.
Okay, next question. George from JJ says, do you think it would be a good idea to sponsor local kids football? A mate told me at the cost of hiring the local school pitch, and I had no idea that they could do with the help.
Yeah, it amazes me that that clubs up and down the country haven't adopted a local school or schools. Although our club's done more than many, I don't think people will even know that last year in Newcastle schools, every school child in Newcastle last year got free school meals, paid for by Amanda Staveley. She won't thank me for saying that publicly, because I know she wanted it kept quiet. That's incredible stuff. You know, that just makes the takeover all worthwhile to me immediately, and my knowledge with local schools as a governor. So yes, I would like to see the possibility of clubs. I mean, they're signing kids now at 9 years of age, for God's sake. I mean, people were amazed when I signed when I was 14. They were complaining that it was too early. No, yes, good idea. Needs to be thought out very carefully though, so that if there's some sugar going, we spread it wisely so everybody gets a chance. Or even have areas where schools could go in on occasions to the training ground or St James's Park. But it's a good idea. Yes, I'd love to see more interaction between local schools and the football club, all football clubs, not just ours. And as I say, Amanda Staveley's already done amazing things in that regard already. But from a football point of view, yeah, it'd be fantastic. I mean, as I say, I was 14 when I first signed my bit of paper to do with anything to do with Newcastle United, and even then, some people were saying to me, "Father, oh, that's ridiculous. Far too young, far too young." Well, they're now signing at 9. So if they're doing that, why not do it a bit more with other kids and spread the sugar a little bit?
Yeah, good stuff. Good answers. Good questions. Get them in. John Askew says, did George know my dad's old pal, Billy Bolt? I think he was a draftsman at Swans back in the day, he says.
I know the name. I can't admit to actually knowing him. But in my early training, I spent a fair bit of time in Swan Hunters. And of course, my wife, Marjorie, was a tracer in the drone office at Swan Hunters. And that's how we met. Partly, although we met at school first, but she I suspect that's how I met Billy Bolt, knew of Billy Bolt, because Margie was in the drone office as well. But I didn't actually meet him, but I do know the name.
Okay, there we go. Next question from Les. Is the independent regulator coming in, and literally what do we expect to achieve? I don't think it is it, George? I think it's been paused because of the election.
Well, it's been put under the counter because of the election, and I think both politicians and certainly me as a football fan hope it never resurfaces, because people don't realise what they're getting involved in. If this person comes in as independent regulator, well, that first word is a con. Anybody who works for the government does the government's bidding. You can call them independent. I mean, I've worked with independent inspectors of probation, independent inspectors of prisons, independent inspectors of police. And the first thing I discovered was whoever was Home Secretary, that independent person worked for the Home Secretary and applied the Home Secretary's rules in what they were doing. So what's independent about that? Nothing, as far as I'm concerned. And I think this would happen with the independent football regulator. He would have to bend the knee to whoever's in government. And that's not good for football. Not good for football at all. So I hope it's lost under the counter, to be perfectly honest. Unless there's somebody desperate to make a name for themselves about something. But I can't see football being such a big vote winner that somebody wants to stick their head above the parapet that much. Because all it gets grief, frankly.
John says, should Eddie be more flexible with a 4-3-3 press? We beat Wolves 3-0 at home, playing deeper. Then 9 days later, went to a beleaguered Chelsea and lost 3-2 with a high press.
Yes, there are occasions when he's slow to change or doesn't change at all, and that's something he needs to think about. And the Chelsea, that's a good example. Chelsea game, Chelsea were there for the taking. We took the shackles off a little bit. We would have won that game. And yeah, the other games at home where, I mean, there are at least 2 or 3 where we had less than 30% of the possession, and we made the other team look like non-starters. It was so clinical, and yet occasionally falls back to what happened to Chelsea, and is not good. But the one thing about Eddie Howe is he seems to me, and he's demonstrated in his career since he left Bournemouth and all of that, that he's a learner. He wants to learn, and if somebody can point him in the right direction, I think there's still time that Eddie can change lots of things for us at Newcastle. One of the people that might help him is Jones, the one of our coaches, the one that used to help Southgate. I can't help but notice that when something special happens on the pitch, they don't just run to Eddie. Particularly Wilson, for example. If Wilson scores and he comes to the side of the pitch to celebrate, he doesn't celebrate with Eddie. He celebrates with Jones, and 1 or 2 others do as well. So I think there's the group of coaches there who have such a good rapport. They're going to help Eddie to think about some of those things, and I think he's a big enough man to learn a lesson, in my view, from what I've seen, and that would be great because let's face it, we last year again we weren't far off being really good, and sometimes we were fantastic. Just we want to be better than Manchester City, and that's where I want to be. I'm a greedy little duck.
John says, George, how determined do you think the Saudis are to make us number 1? And were they just talking about this country or the world?
In my business, I can only talk about my experience with these people in business, and they will only accept the best. And I've been in a meeting where someone dared to suggest that they would tone down some of the fittings in a vessel that was being built. And I'm very careful what I say, otherwise MI5 will be knocking on my door. It toned down some of the fittings in a particular vessel that was being built, and they got up and walked out just on the basis of what they didn't like, what they heard. No, they want the best, and the best for them will be world number 1. They won't stop with just world, England, Europe number 1. They will want to see us winning the World Club Championship. I've no doubt about that. They wouldn't have come otherwise. I'm certain of it. Certain of it. Everything about them says number 1 all the time. And I've no doubt about that.
Okay, another question from Spenny says, ask George, do you put cream on the scone first or jam?
Well, that's a good one, Spenny. Jam, I'm afraid. I'm a jam person. So I get as much jam as I can on, and then squash the cream on top of the jam so it mixes nicely, and then down it goes. Yeah.
Barry, good evening, says, George, do you think there'll be a big foreign star like Isaac in the pipeline, or do you think we're just going to go for English cast-offs?
No, I still believe that there will be at least one big name from Europe in this transfer round. There already been talks about we're sniffing around another Inter Milan player, haven't they? But no, I'd be amazed if we didn't have at least one star from Europe, known star from Europe. Hopefully 2, an attacker and a defender for me.
Okay, Andrew says, question for George, who in the world now would you like Newcastle to sign? And we'll team that up with Dave's question. He says, can you name one player you'd like to see in Newcastle if money was no object?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, really pressed, I would go for young Bellingham. He's at an age where he's got at least a decade at the top, and whoever he's playing for are going to be at the top as well. I mean, Real Madrid weren't daft when they signed him. They knew what they were signing him. So if there were any way of getting him, that's who I'd be looking at, because he would fit nicely into Eddie's style. He would fit nicely into the rest of the younger talent that we've got around. Imagine him and Isak in the same forward line. Oh, goodness gracious. The pace and the goals would come from that. Just unbelievable. So that would be my number one. And there are a couple of Spanish players and German players that I wouldn't mind looking at. But yeah, young Bellingham would be the one. If money's no object, it would be young Bellingham, I've got to say.
Okay. Ask George, is Eddie's preference for English players limiting us from bringing foreign players in?
Has he got a preference for English players? I'm not sure that's right. He has a preference for good players. Let's face it, we hung around for ages for Botman. We very sneakily got Isak in without anybody knowing it was happening. So that suggests that if they're good players, he'll have them. He's got, because of these stupid bloody rules, to have at the back of his mind the balance of the team, which is probably why it looks like he favours English players. But I think he's shown that he's quite happy to prefer his own English players, local players, by giving people like Anderson and Longstaff and others an opportunity with the club. But to say just English, I don't think that holds, because the club have been very patient when they've been looking at somebody like Botman and like Isak when they've been looking for things abroad. Yeah. And it's a strange thing to say, but even young Minty, we've hung around for ages before we got him. So yes, I think it's the rules about balance that dictate the English preference rather than Eddie's own personal preference. I think Eddie likes good players, and if he sees one, he'll have them.
Okay, John Askew again says, George, when they revise FFP and PSR rules, are you worried it'll be a case of meet the new rules, same as the old rules? It's a bit like a Who song, that.
Yeah. Yes, whatever happens is got to be a wholesale change. It can't just be tinkering. And I'll say on here something Steve knows I've said on other of our platforms, that golf was in a hole. Nobody could solve golf. Live in the NGA were not going to give way. Nobody could solve this conundrum. Well, Amanda Staveley and her husband solved the conundrum in about a fortnight. I still think she could end up being the one that solves the Premier League conundrum, because they've had the experience. And if any club, apart from Manchester City, although I think we would challenge that as well, has the legal advice that could do that, it's us. And I'm still firmly believe that we're keeping our powder dry so that we're not accused of being the bad boys from the northeast, like we would be accused if we start dipping our fingers in too soon. But sooner or later, somebody's going to have to put it right. And when they do that, it'll take a brave person and somebody with a lot of knowledge of these things. And we're lucky enough, I think, to have them at St James's Park.
France 0, Poland 0, going into the last couple of minutes of that game, and Netherlands 0, Austria 1, going into the last couple of seconds of the first half in that game. So both live at the moment. Tom says, question for George, where do you think Newcastle will finish this season, and do you think they will finish in the top 4?
Well, those of you that know me well know I'm in black and white through and through, and entirely an optimist. Now, put it this way, I'd be very disappointed if we didn't finish in the top 4 this season, particularly as we don't have the encumbrance of an extra game because of Europe and all this sort of thing. We can concentrate on English things, the league, the 2 cups, and that would please me. But it would disappoint me greatly if we didn't take advantage of that and get in the top 4 or come close to winning one of the cups.
Okay. George, any job that you wish you had trained to do or at least tried? Politics, maybe, he says.
Now, there's a question. I'm looking at my Marjorie's chair because many moons ago, I sat in this room with a number of very senior politicians from a particular party who wanted me to challenge for the parliamentary seat here in North Tyneside. And I didn't do it. And the reason I didn't do it was, in all the years we were together, Marjorie never ever complained about anything that I did. But she was not in favour of politics. She felt that was a step too far. And she may have been right, because once I get my teeth into something, I won't let go. So yeah, and having seen it close, I mean, people don't realise, when I worked with the Home Office in as a volunteer in London, as head of the probation service, for 5 years, I was a member of Tony Blair's Cobra Committee. Now, people will hear on the television the Prime Minister's had his Cobra Committee talking about this and talking about that. Well, when Blair was Prime Minister, I was actually on his Cobra Committee. And that was fascinating and gave me lots of insight, and did make me think whether or not perhaps should have gone in that direction. However, I never used the word regret, because I think that's a mistake. It's you do what you do because you want to. I've had a fantastic career as a naval architect, worked all over the world for all sorts of people, and I would have missed all of that had I done something else. So, yes, I might have enjoyed politics, but I've enjoyed the career I've had, enjoyed the life I had, supported very much by my Marjorie, and did things I would never have thought of doing if she hadn't been here. You know, people would come and say, "George, will you do this?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm not sure." And then voice at the back would be saying, go on, you can do it. and we worked as a team like that. So it was good. So yes, possibly politics. I think I would have enjoyed that, but I have enjoyed the career I've had, and still have, because I still do odd bits of work for friends. Well, and for, it's ironic, I do a little bit of consultancy now and then. Sometimes the people I'm consulting to used to be my students 20 odd years ago, because they've got their own companies now. So yes, yeah, politics possibly, but I've enjoyed what I've done, is the honest answer.
Barry says, George, do you think Bobby Clark will ever come back to Newcastle?
The short answer is no, I don't think so. I think he's made his choice, and he has a good advisor in his father, and who's got his finger on the pulse on what's going on elsewhere, including here. And if Bobby Clark moves, I don't think it'll be in this direction.
Spenny, good evening. He says, question for George. Were you impressed as much as I was with Bastoni for Italy on his displays in Euro 2024?
Yes, is the short answer, Spenny. Yes, I was. Typical Italian, good on the ball, very calm, collected, played the ball easy, played it long as well as short. Yes, I was very impressed with him, Spenny. That's a good call, actually.
Barry says, George, are there any Newcastle players we sold way before their time age-wise? Frank Clark springs to mind.
Yeah, and others as well. But the trouble is, there's a difference between players we sold and players who wanted to leave. and I've never been a believer in keeping players that want to leave. Pop Robson should have never went, put it that way. But Pop Robson manoeuvred his own transfer. You know, he held a press conference at the Five Bridges Hotel with his bloody mother-in-law and slated the club. And yes, he got his transfer. Of course he did. Alan Suddick went to Blackpool ages before we should have let him go. Should never let Alan Suddick go. He could have been the focal point of a very dangerous forward line if we'd kept Alan Suddick. And you know, they're just two I can think off the top of my head. But over the years, we've had a number who could easily done a lot better for us. One people might not even remember. Manchester City had a centre half called George Hislop. George Hislop played in the same junior team as I did and never got a look in at Newcastle. We all knew he was bloody good, but the coaches didn't seem to know he was even there. 2 years after he left us, he was in Manchester City's first team and being touted as an England player. So, you know, the players like that were missed and others we let go. Who else? Yeah. Oh, it's difficult to get them to the front of my mind, but there are so many that could have done better with us and didn't, and we let go.
Okay, last couple of questions. Big thanks to Marky, who's become a member. If you want to become a YouTube member and give us a little bit of money towards the Malverno Fund, $1.99 it is a month. Thank you, Marky, for joining me. It means a lot. Tim says, ask George if he's got any fond memories of my father-in-law, Harry Parker, at Swan Hunters.
Yes. Now that is a name I know, and that is a man I know. He was. My memory is that he was good at what he did. He was a good manager as well as a good tradesman, and very well respected because of that. And so when I was learning what bits out there the university expected me to learn in the shipyard, there's an irony to that. You know, my father-in-law, my father didn't want me to go to the university job. He wanted me to go into the yard and have a proper apprenticeship. And so I was kind of relieved I wasn't knocking on the door at Swans at 7 o'clock on every morning, and was going to the university in a smart collar and tie and changing when I was there. Only to find when I first morning in the university, the professor said, "Right, Mitchell, you'll report to Swan Hunters at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. You're going down for some real training." So I found myself back in the shipyard as well. And that's where I met people like the gentleman we're talking about. A bit later on in my career, when I went back again to work with people like Bill Hills, who became Professor Hills, who would know that gentleman as well. So yes, good memories is all I'll say.
Good stuff. Don't forget as well, if you are watching on Facebook, LinkedIn or X tonight, then search NUFC Matters on YouTube and hit the subscribe button. It does us a big favour. It helps us out. We do 7 shows a week and it costs absolutely nothing to subscribe. So please jump onto YouTube and hit the subscribe button. It does do us a big favour. We've got nearly 300 watching tonight, which means 200 of you are watching elsewhere. Please jump over. We do 7 shows a week, and I think you'll find it a very interesting and informative channel. Gary says, listening to you, George, your passion, integrity, and warmth, I think you'd have made a fantastic MP, something that we are sadly lacking. And Barry says, amazing show, Steve. George needs to write a book. Unbelievable stories. I could listen all day. He is Mr. Newcastle to me. It's an honour to be on a show with him. I'm going to finish off with a question, George, from Blue Rhythm Boy. Says, George, what one piece of life advice would you give someone 40 or 50 years younger than you?
Oh, be kind. If you can't be kind, don't do it. Yeah, I shudder when I hear some of the things people say and do very quickly. And if they'd only just thought a little bit, but be kind, for God's sake, be kind, because it'll pay you back eventually. Just like if you're not kind, that comes back to you as well. But be kind, and no matter who it is, always remember you might meet them on the way up, but you might meet them on the way down as well. So be kind. That's most important bit of advice I would give anybody, and stems from really advice that come from my father and my grandfather and people like that, and who they wouldn't have certain words they wouldn't have used in the house. Hate was a word they would not have you use. You never hate anybody. You might disagree with them, you might dislike them, but never hate. Never hate. No, that's a word they would never have. And I just said regret is the one that they wouldn't have either. If you've done something, you've done it for a reason. So you can't retract it by saying you regretted it, because that's what people do. And the other one that people use is when they address you. I used to get a lot of this when I was a magistrate. With respect, your worship. 2 minutes after they've said with respect, they're insulting you. You know, they're going to, you know, so they're the sort of things I would persuade people. Think about what you say, but most of all, for goodness sake, be kind, because it'll pay you back. I've got to say, it's paid me back in a million ways. Going back to political things, I just had cause to look at something this week that reminded me of something. When I was working with the Home Office, one of the Home Secretaries I used to meet with meet weekly face-to-face meetings and argue over a table about money was Michael Howard. Now, Michael Howard, with his political switch on, was a dyed-in-the-wool, very conservative. But as a dinner partner, he was brilliant and knew his football. Swansea City supporter, knew his football. But what a nice man. Now, this is how long ago I first met Michael? Over 30 years ago. And I still, one of my first Christmas cards is from Michael and Sarah. And I've got a most beautiful letter from him when Marjorie passed away. So, you know, that sort of kindness you don't forget. And he's not known to be that sort of way. But the thing I was going to say was what reminded me about that was when I finished my term of office working for the probation service, I got a gift from Michael Howard. It's a Longines watch. It's their silver watch, worth a couple of grand now. And that was a personal thank you from him, not from the government, not from any not from a probation service, but from him personally. Now that means an awful lot to me. That means an awful lot to me. So you know, be kind for each other, folks. Yes, argue about football. That's the beauty of football. But be kind. It's life's too short. Life's too short. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Just a little bit of stop press news for you, in case you don't know. The Geordie dentist coming to the after-season party. He's already got his flight booked together, so so you get a chance to ask him questions directly.
It'll be good stuff. Yeah, we're going to make sure you get your tickets for that. Going to be a good squad of people off the show there. And when we finish those with the days, and we're not far away from getting up to date on that, we are going to be doing Ask George on a regular basis on the channel. So lots of people saying they really enjoyed it. Tom Dixon says, I've got to listen to George all day. What a great legend he is. And that's great. It's nice, but it's a show that we are going to do on a regular basis. So yeah, thanks for doing it tonight, George. Everyone's enjoyed it. Prediction for the England game?
Well, I think England will win this one, thank goodness. Perhaps 2 or 3-0. I'm not optimistic, provided he picks the right team.
Exactly.
So yeah, but I still think we'll win it. And thanks everybody for your kindness. It really is kind of you all. I do appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you all at the food bank.
Tom Dixon, hope you're feeling a bit better, mate. I seen your post the other day and you were a bit under the weather. Hope you're on the mend. Enjoy the game tonight, everybody. England to win, I think that's for certain. It's who we get in the next stage will be interesting. But yeah, England to win comprehensively tonight, I think. And it might be coming home again. Take care, everybody. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.